Everyone, how are you today? Hope everybody's doing all right. Today I want to do skin with you all. So we have gone through creating and drawing our eyes and getting our sparkles and eyelashes. We've also practiced getting our noses round and getting our lips to look plump. So today I really want to concentrate on skin, and I just want to show you a couple of the girls that I have done previously and to let you see how their faces have come together and by using skin, and I'm hoping you can pick it up on the camera. Here are a few examples of some of my girls, and I'm going to show you the colours that I use and how you can get different definition and things just by using your pencils. This is the latest girl that I have done, little half face girl. So, you know, I'm going to build up around her nose and around her eye and things. And then of course there's Joy, this is one of the girls from the Heartfelt collection, and this is the A4 size, and I just had a little shot of colouring her skin on there. So I hope you can see it okay. So I think the easiest way to do skin is to use one of the girls from the Heartfelt collection and build her up without anything else, without her eyes and without her hair or anything there, and just slowly build up the skin. Now I'm hoping that you can see that okay. It is very, very pale, isn't it? But we'll make a start anyway, and I'm going to show you what colours I am going to use. I'm going to use my very, very small light flesh, and then my medium flesh, also an ivory and a white and a cream. I also might bring in a little bit of orange, so some cadmium orange. And for the shadows and things today, I'm going to use a cold grey. And to warm up her skin tone a little bit, I'm going to use dark Naples ochre. And to help make her nose look a little bit round and to bring in some browns, I'm going to use some brown ochre. And also some burnt sienna, which is a really nice warm tone, which is really, I like using that quite a lot. And then for on her blusher and cheeks, I've got two different shades of pink. I've got Pink Madder Lake and Rose Carmine. But of course, you know, like I always say, have a play and use your own colours and see how you get on. Right, so I always start with the light flesh, but I also want to show you how you can go around with your white and get some areas that are going to be white and keep them highlighted, because if you burnish it as well, it prevents any other colour going over the top of it. So I'm going to find a little round spot on the ball of her nose and burnish that and press down really, really hard. So no colour will go on top of that now. And then the same on her chin. Do a little white spot there. And then the same going around the outside line of her lip. And also around the outside of her nose. And sometimes I do a little bit above her eyelids here, but I'm just going to do those bits for now. And I know you probably can't see anything right now. But anyway, starting with the light flesh, and like what I show you on the Facebook lives, find that little spot at her eye, just at the corner of her eye, and then that is your sort of safe spot, and you can have a little play around it trying to see where you think they're lined up and to see where you know that the eye is going to start to create a little eye bag. So just keeping it ever so light, because you know, the lighter you do, the more layers you can get on there, And just by going around this little area a few times, really lightly, you can start to see it slowly build up. And I tend to always do it, whatever I do at one side, I try to do it on the other side as well, just to keep it even. And then you get more of a feel of the shape of her face starting to evolve. So by doing this now, I'm starting to create this little area that's coming to, so it's going to be white under here, and do the same at the other side. Lots of little light circular motions, and keep it as light as possible. And the more layers you got on there, the more it starts to move around. You'll be able to go in and manipulate it a little bit more. So we'll get a little bit under her eye that's going to be white, and just continue to build that up. Now at some point you will start to see it. I'm just having a look to see if I can see anything occurring yet on your camera. Bring it down a little bit maybe. So just keeping it ever so light, and I'll just work on this side for now. And take it all the way to the side, and also I tend to bring it up around just under the bottom of this eye. This area here gets dark because of the shadow of her hair, so just getting that first layer in. Now by doing this, so we've created this little circular motion coming around here, and then if we come in onto her cheek, then you slowly start to create an area that's still white around about here. Now I'll bring in my ivory there and try to make it, keep it quite light. And then also try and get a little bit of colour in around the side of this little white bit that you've done. If you just use the side of your pencil and just go around that, then that starts to create a little bit of depth. And then the same if you start bringing your nose in. You start to see where all the little white areas are starting to appear. And that's how you start to see the shape of the face starting to evolve, and how you slowly start to get your 3D sort of effect. So just by having this first layer down, you're starting to see the lighter areas and where it should be dark. So again, another area that I like to darken up is just here at the bottom of the chin and underneath her lip. So working your way around this little white dot, and it gets darker and darker in under her lip because the lip's coming out a little bit, causing a bit of a shadow. And so now we're starting to see that it's light here, we've got a little bit dark here, and that is starting to make it look a little bit more 3D already. But you know, you're just going to keep darkening it up in different areas, so that you don't want it all a block colour of just pure this colour, this light flesh everywhere, because the face isn't all just one colour, so it's nice to build it up. So by just going over this little area, just with little slight swoops, you start to deepen and darken this area, so it feels like there's a little bit of depth there. So straight away, just by doing that, you can start to see that you want this area darker, and you can use your darker flesh tone to start to emphasize that. But I start usually just with this one, just getting all the areas to try and see where I want it to be darker. So just by going over, so not going hard, just keeping it light, but just putting on more and more layers. So every time you go over that area, you're just putting another layer on. So keep it nice and light. And because you've got a few layers on there now, you can almost move the colour. So just by doing a little sweep, you can move some of that colour around on her face. And of course you would do the same at the other side, but I'm just going to work here on this side just to build it up quicker. So yeah, I can sit for a long time just with this one pencil, just marking out where there's going to be this sort of tone. So it kind of goes round in that sort of shape. We'll use and then of course you want to have it darken underneath her nose. So bringing this colour under her nose. And sometimes I take it right up and then just put my darker browns and things in to emphasise the nose. Sometimes I leave a little white space as well. But also if you put a little line down here, then that kind of starts to build up this area. And then if you just go around where you've put in that white, your white pencil around the lip, just slightly, just softly going around that line with one or two layers, then that starts to give the illusion of a little bit of depth starting to appear there. And then you can either have this area where you make it darker or lighter depending on what you want to do. But I'm just going to do a little line there. I'm also going to use this pencil just to create a line to let me know where the end of my nose is. And that bit there is going to get darker and darker. And of course so is in this bit on the nose. That'll get darker and darker as well. But just keep putting in lots of layers at the minute, nice and softly. And slowly it starts to come together. So now that we've got this first sort of couple of layers in on her nose and this little white area starting to show, sometimes I can then use this pencil just to emphasise the nose, and you can have it that you have the nose going up into a bridge here if you want. I don't tend to, I like little button noses, so I tend to just do a little line here. And it can be squiggly, it doesn't have to be straight. That starts to create a little bit of illusion of a nose. And then also if you start to darken just here, so just little sweeps going in the direction of the face, so coming around this corner. You know, then that starts to give the illusion of a bit of depth and a nose starting to appear. So now that I know, by doing this, I now know that this area is going to be darker, this area is going to be lighter, this area is going to be even darker and light in there. So I'm going to now emphasise those areas. We'll do the same up here. Coming around her eye. So if you imagine she hasn't got any eyeshadow on today, she's just going to have pale skin. Just get a layer on there as well, working up towards her eyebrow. Now you can see the difference. I haven't used any different colours so far, and you can see where we're emphasising just by putting in more and more layers. So if you do it nice and softly, that gives you more control, and it just allows you to do it at a slow pace and in a way that's not scary, because you're just literally putting one layer down each time. And by just doing one layer, you know that you can, with this colour as well, you can rub it out if you want to in the early stages. This will just rub out easily, especially if you've done it lightly. So it just gives you that bit of confidence to know that you're just having a play and just seeing where you want your hair, so not your hair, your skin to get darker. So again under the hairline here, so getting a few layers in under there. So we'll do it to about there. So now we can see that we also want this area here to be darker, so put a few layers in there. Leave a little whitey bit, I usually do, just to give a little bit of sparkle. But you can, by where this line is on the eyelid, that's always darker in there as well. So if you want to just go in and put a few layers, and I'm just doing it in lines instead of circles now, because once you've done your first circular motions, you've got a good layer down there, then you're free to kind of move your pencil a little in different directions to then move the colour around a little bit. So I tend to move the pencil in the direction of the way the face is moving. So like up here would be a little bit rounder, so as the face is going around the corner. So you can do it where it's moving it in a little bit. That gives a bit of an illusion of the roundness. And then just little circular motions to even it out. And then darker in here. So get a few layers in there, and then of course you can do your little swoops to make it look round. Coming in, if you come in right from the line. Right, so that's us got our first sort of layer on, definitely on this side. And so now that I know where I want it darker, I'm going to go in and make it even darker with my medium flesh. So still keeping it light and starting again where we started before, in at this point of the eye. And this point here can just keep getting darker and darker. You can bring in browns or purples or whatever colour you want to use. It's about just deciding what sort of colour palette you want to use. Like if you've got like her wearing a green dress and you want to have a green eyeshadow and things, then you can use different shades of green in here just to keep it all cohesive. So there, I'm darkening that area up even more, and that's starting to create a little bit of depth. Just emphasising around this line a little bit as well, but I'm not making it a line, I'm just dragging some of that colour out away from there into the rest of her face to make it softer. So there, and then of course where we had this little dark area here, using this pencil to then highlight that a little bit. Again, highlighting this little line. Using this to start darkening up this part of her nose as well. And hopefully by doing this you're starting to see where the white area is starting to shine through. And the more you darken up around this area, the more that becomes round and starts to look 3D. And again, using the motion of the roundness of the nose, so coming out from there and then coming in, and circular sort of motions, and that as well helps to create the shape of the nose. And then keeping it at its darkest, going around the outside, and then again here doing the same. And that little white area is starting to show. And then using this dark pencil again to emphasise this line that we've already done, and so that means the lighter flesh is underneath there, and it's starting to make it look a little bit more 3D. And then the same under her lip. And then bringing that around this little white area and emphasising this little bit under her chin, on the top of her chin. And then also, well, I sometimes use this darker for, sorry, the light medium flesh, sorry, coral, sometimes it's called coral, to go around this line here. But today I'm going to use a grey just to show you how you can create that little bit of a shadowy effect. So just going along here above her eyelid starts to give the illusion of her eyelid having a little bit of depth in here, so it's going in a little bit. So it goes in here and then the shadow comes out. Once you've got that first few circular motions, you can then use your pencil to go in lines. And it goes all the way along. So by bringing in this creates a bit of depth. And you can play around with your pencils and try different things. You can even use just your lead pencil. So you can use this grey just to highlight all your areas that are going to be darker. And of course it's going to be darker in here. Sometimes I use the browns, sometimes purples, but the grey is the natural sort of shade, the colour that you see in a shadow or a shade. So have a play around with all your different greys just to see how you go. So we've got those in, and then you can go over the top of those with your medium flesh and really darken them up as well. So by doing the grey, then that creates the illusion of it being round as well. So you have it darker then and you have this area that becomes white, it starts to make it look round. So there's lots of different ways of doing it, but this is just me showing you another way. And you will find your own way. You'll think, oh, I prefer to do it this way, or I don't like it if you do it that way. You can use this grey as well on the nose, down at the bottom, to try and create your round sort of feeling. Taking it all the way around that line, and then just dragging some of the colour in on top of your light flesh. And the same, maybe just a wee bit here at the bottom. So just keeping that orb idea, you know, when we started off doing the orb, that's what helps it to become round. So yeah, like now that I've put that little bit of grey in here, it's starting to make her nose look a little bit rounder. Right, so I'm going to bring in a little bit of ivory now, because I now know that I've darkened up this area, that this is making her face look rounder. So I'm going to use the ivory to highlight this area. I want it to stay lighter. And I'm going to put it into the flesh as well, just to make it look more cohesive, so it doesn't feel like it's changing drastically. Because you can put the colours over the top of each other, it brightens them up. So this sort of like ball area here, it tends to be lighter. So using the ivory just to highlight that. And then I also now know that I need to darken up this area a little bit more, so that's where her cheek's going to be. Put a little bit of ivory in here on her nose as well. So it goes dark, dark, lighter, lighter, and then you have like a white. So I'm going to get my white pencil and then just put a white line. So from about there up the centre, and then just press down hard to burnish it. And I mean, you can as well do a little white circle up here if you want. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So I'm now going to go back to my very first colour. a very small light flesh, and just start to add a little bit, few more layers on the build up towards her nose. So it's going to be dark, light, ivory, white. Tends to be the way I do it. And if you have any areas it's such that you've got like little bits of white, just go in and do a few more layers on top of them little white bobbly bits that sometimes you get. But you know, the best paper again is your extra smooth. This is 250 GSM. This is what's in your colouring sets for those who've purchased those, and it really is lovely paper. I think you'll really enjoy colouring on them. So I'm going to go in and darken again up this little bit here where the cheek's going to be. And then now that this area is starting to get a bit of colour, I tend to sometimes do a little line that comes down so that there's a space between where your pencil line is going to be and where her face actually skin, where you see the skin, and that gives an illusion of her face being round again. And then if you just drag some of that colour in from this line that you've just done, then that makes it look more round. And so this little area here tends to be lighter, just between the lip and there. Then it tends to be darker in under the nose. So just putting more layers in there. Darkening that up a little bit, but not completely. So going around where this little white line is. So you can see that it's a little bit darker here, but it gets a little bit lighter there. So trying to alternate the depth just by having bits that are dark, bits that are light. And the more you do it, the more you'll get used to where you think the dark bits should be. You know. Right, so now I'm going to go over the top of the grey a little bit with my medium flesh. I'm going to sharpen it first because I dropped it a minute ago. It's gone blunt. So just emphasising in here. Now you can go in here with a brown or a black along this line to make it even darker. But when you go over the top of the grey with the pink as well, then that helps. It just helps. I don't know why it helps, it just helps. So making sure it's darker, darker, darker in here, and then just coming out. That gives a bit of depth. And doing the same all the way along here. So I'm going to just go along that line with this pencil and then just drag colour out from it. There's another two on the floor. Don't it annoy you when your pencils fall on the floor and then they get broken and blunt? So just going all the way along there, darkening this up. And if you keep it that it's more round, yeah, you don't really want this to be like a square shape, because it just looks more natural when things are round on your face. And then again coming around and making this round to darken up this area. So using this to like make little swoopy. Again, that helps keep that round. So hopefully you can see that that's starting to make that look a little bit, this area look rounder just because it's darker. In here and working its way out. So just need to put a little bit more in here on her eyelid as well. And I usually would put eyeshadow on, and I do like putting eyeshadow on, but I just want to keep it all with a skin tone just to let you see. So where this line is, you want it to be dark. It's like when we do the lips. You want it to be dark at either side of the line to help with the depth. And then you can always make that black in areas. You don't want it to do it like a dark, just black line, but I quite like using just my lead pencil actually. So if you like, if you just go in every now and again and have little bits that are darker and then little bits that are lighter. So if you imagine that it gets, where you want it to be at its deepest is where you want it to be at its darkest. So if I do it a little bit darker there, and then up here, and then going back again with the grey and dragging some of that colour out. Hopefully you'll start to see how that creates more depth. Take some of that grey over onto the top of her lid as well. It looks a bit odd without her having eyes and things yet, doesn't it? But you can also bring in your creams. So I'm going to make it a little bit warmer, just bring in some cream just here, just this little area here, and that kind of warms up her skin tone a little bit there. Just try and blend it in a little bit to the rest. And I'm going to use a little bit of orange as well. So coming in around this area that we've just made a little bit darker, just drag a little bit of orange coming out there. Put a little bit of orange up into her eye as well. Then that warms up the skin a little bit. I'm going to use a pink, one of the ones that landed on the floor. So I need to sharpen it to bring in her cheek, to show you how that builds up once you get the cheek on there as well. So starting right at the end, find enough spot, and then just slowly starting to work your way in till you find where you want the cheek to be. Now you know there's lots of different ways of having cheeks, where you have your little circles or have your cheek lower down coming in. So I'm going to put it here today. And just bring it up a little bit as well to her eye. I'm going to bring it up towards her eye. You don't always have to do that. It just depends on what sort of style you're looking for as well. And the more you do it, the more you'll discover your own unique style. If it speaks to you and it feels right, then just keep following that path. And that's when you'll discover your own creative voice, and just be proud of it. So just lots and lots of layers, and for each layer I tend to start right on the outside line and build it in. So, and then every now and again get a little bit braver and think, I fancy her cheek coming all the way along. So if you just do it gradually, and every now and again have a look to see if it's making her face look pretty or nice, or now this little line's starting to emphasise a little bit, you know, the one that we made to make it look a little bit that the bit was white. So just dragging a little bit of colour out from that to help it start to look round. So just darkening it up more so towards the line. And then letting the rest get softer and softer. So once you've sort of done all this area, you kind of see where you want all the darkness to be, and you can come back in with your light flesh and start to emphasise a little bit more under the bag, or you can go over the top of your blusher as well to make it look a little bit smoother. You can think, oh, I want this to be a bit darker. So just have a little play with what's starting to feel right for you. I mean, if we put in the dark, we darken up this line. So let me just turn her around a little bit. If we darken up where her eye is going to be, that could help you as well. And of course, when you're doing this, you probably got her eye coloured. And the eye is really what makes them look alive. And of course, that's where I always start. So it's feeling a bit odd for me tonight, or today, to be to not have an eye there while I'm doing all the rest. But if we just darken that sort of area up a little bit, then that can help as well. So she still needs a little bit of light flesh up here underneath her hairline. So just darkening that up a little bit. And I tend to bring the colour down onto her eyebrow, and then find an area that's going to be white. So just by doing little circular motions around this area, build up a white sort of patch where there's going to be a shine on her head, and then it starts to join onto this little white line that we've created for the centre of her nose. So you can do it all just in little areas, or you can do it all where you just do all of the light flesh all over, get all of that done, and then move towards doing the nose, or you can do it all in just little sections where you're just building it up slowly. So this little bit here needs to have a little bit more to give you some depth here as well. So you want to darken this area a little bit. So all the areas that end up being darker are bits that give you the depth in the face. Like I'm going to use this pencil because it's light, just to lighten this line. So it's dark, 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 then just that makes it look a bit longer, but less harsh. It just extends her eyelid a little bit without it being just really dark. So if you use your ivory as well, or your white in the bag, I'm going to use white, then that helps to make it look like it hasn't been neglected, that you just haven't decided to colour it in. It brightens it up. I'm going to come in with the pink, coming over the top of this area now, over the top of the orange, just to show how you can just keep layering up colours over the top. And it tends to be darker just above the eyelid as well, and then lighter, lighter, and then that makes that look round. So you can kind of see the what's the word? See me with words right now. I'm putting it down to my age. I still can't think of the word. It'll come back to me at some point. If not, then you know it weren't that important. Pattern, that's the word. There's a bit of a pattern going on where you're doing the same thing. So it gets dark, then lighter, lighter, lighter as it comes out to create the illusion of the roundness there. Same here. Each little area is dark, 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 light, light. Then there's the same here, dark, dark, light, light. And then down here it's a little bit dark, and then it gets lighter and lighter towards there. Darker here, gets lighter towards. So this is all the ways to make it look round. So I'm putting in some pink in her nose. So it's letting you see how you can bring in different colours. You know, you could use purples and things down here to create your shadows if you wanted. And the more layers, the more vibrant it becomes. I'm just going to bring in more light flesh and work more towards the ball of the nose. So make it a little bit darker here. So now I'm doing it in lines. Now that I've got a few layers on there, I can do that and just move the colour into the direction that I want it to go in. So like I want it to be kind of curly here. So just doing like a curly sort of motion. And it gets to a point where you're happy and you just want to burnish it, which is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm starting to press down quite hard there. And then the same here. Go back in again with the cream and brighten up this area again, give it a few more layers. Put a little bit of cream down here as well, where we've sort of decided that we're happy having it lighter. I would just put the cream in all the areas that you're happy having lighter. And I'm going to darken up her cheek a little bit with a darker pink. I'm using the Rose Carmine just to get some areas that are going to be darker. So you can see that it's starting to come together. It's a bit of a slow process. I'm just putting a little bit of darker pink in here on her eyelid. Of course her eyelids always look nicer with the eyeshadow on, I think, but sometimes it's nice to have them natural looking as well. So I'm just going to bring in a comparison so that you can kind of see how it's starting to come together. Like with this one, I've done it darker in here, so if I maybe just bring in my medium flesh again and just see where this, I've made it really, really dark here. I mean, every girl's face is different. So this has all been built up just with the light flesh and then the medium flesh and then the pinks on her nose and on her, you know, and the darker. So it's all been done in the same sort of way, but perhaps using oranges instead of pinks, or deciding to keep it more natural. Like this girl doesn't even have an eyelid. And so look, I've just darkened that, and I can go over here, and even though she's relatively finished, I can still go in and darken these up again. So this is an A4 size one. So this is quite a substantial one. It takes a little while to do, but really enjoyable once you start getting into it. So here look, we're creating the depth by having it darker here, then lighter to a point where it gets white. And then we've got it ivory here. And just adding a little bit more, even though I was finished, but you know, it soaks in. Then darker here under the nose. You know, I'm hoping that you can see. So again, just if you do a little bit that comes out over this little bit, then in the white bit, it helps it to have a little bit of depth. So bring it down a little bit. Hoping you can see. So yeah, I could probably put some more colour in here and build up the bridge of her nose a little bit more, but sometimes I just like them having it they don't have a lot here on their nose. I like the button nose to be the emphasis, and just darkening up that, and just darkening this little area here, maybe a little bit here now that I've done one side. Doing little lines to create that little bit of depth. As you can see, she's just got the little line here, and then just darkening up little bits around there. Again, the white pencil around the lip, and then just darkening up a little bit around this white line. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's helped. So it's the same with this girl here. I used oranges and browns more on this area to make it dark, and she's got a green eye. But there you can see she's got this little dark bit here, the nose, the little white area, the cheek starting to build up, the ivory in here. She doesn't have so much of a bag, but you can still see that it's lighter under her eye and then getting darker. It's all, you know, trial and error and having a play. So I took a little minute out and decided just to colour her eye and her lip, just so that she stopped looking just a little bit weird with just the skin being done. And I'm hoping that that helps you to see a little bit better how the face shape has come together and how it coincides once her eyes and lips are done. So I'm just doing a few more layers in this area just to try and help her look a little bit more finished. And at this point, because I've got a few layers on there, I'm actually starting to press down a little bit harder on my pencil, trying to burnish it, and as I'm doing that, moving in the direction of the skin as well. And so that makes it look shiny, and it just helps it look a little bit more realistic. And so I've got a real idea now of where I'm going to keep it darker and where I'm going to keep it lighter. And so even though I've put some ivory in here, I'm going to also bring in a little bit of the light flesh over the top of the ivory, just to have it that it's not all just a block colour, and to show you also how you can layer up your pencils and how that just makes it become a little bit more vibrant. So I'm just going to put a little bit more flesh over the top of her blusher as well, and try and emphasise this little area that we've got whiter. I'll put some black in under her lip, that'll help that. Just try and get a little bit more colour going around this white area. And if you kind of just stick to this sort of like process, you know, on both sides, then I think that it'll help you to slowly get a little bit more confidence. So you just know it's darker here, lighter here, and then you've got your blusher here. Make a little bit darker underneath all these different areas, under the nose, under the lips. And, you know, just don't be putting pressure on yourself for it to look a certain way. It's taken me a lot of practice to get to this stage, and I'm not perfect either. There's a lot of room for me to improve, and I'm always learning. Every time I pick up my pencils, I'm discovering how, if I'd done it this way, how that could have been better, or just by taking a bit more time instead of rushing, how you get a nicer effect. So I'm just going to put a little bit more of the ivory in here on this area that's building towards the white. And it needs a little bit more dark up here, so I'm going to put some dark around here to bring in the shadow as well. And I'm also going to try and darken this little area just a little bit, just to try and have it that it's not square. Try and have it that it looks a bit more round. And then realise as well that I could do with, this being a bit darker as well, where her eyelid is coming in, and then having the darkness going over the line as well, that makes it look better. Just darkening that up a little bit. You can see how many layers it takes now, hopefully, and how different colours give different effects as well. See, these, you could have used your blues or different shades of brown, or just greys here, and you would have got a different effect. And same if you had done her eye a different colour. So I'm going to bring some brown. I'm going to use burnt sienna just around this area here, where her shadow is. Use it today for the shadow. And if you do it in the same, with the same idea of how you did your orb, if you keep referring back to your orb, because that was the very first one we did, then that'll help you to get your different illusions and your different shapes. So now I'm hoping with this, after you've done your skin one, that you can now go ahead and create a full face. Do your eyes and do the nose and the lips and the skin. And I would love if you could put them into the group for me to see how much you've learned. Let me see what you've just what you've learned, and to see if your confidence has grown any. And then after that, we can then take whatever girl or boy that you've done, we can then move to the level of creating some hair in our next workshop. So yeah, that would be really, really good. So obviously you would go all the way along the hairline with whatever dark colour you've chosen. And then every now and again as well, I mean this'll look better once it's got like hair coming in here. I'm just going to put in a few lines there. If you also put in some black as well in here on this line, then that helps as well. So I'm just going to do a little bit more coming down the side of her face to about there. Because if you imagine, that's where the darkest area is going to be. And if I just get some black, let me just get a black pencil. And then I find an area where I want it to be at its deepest, so it looks like the hair's lifting off the face a little bit, but also creating a shadow. So maybe around about there. And if you just make it that it's got a little bit of a bump in it, if you know what I mean. So then that gives the feeling that the hair is lifting off the face a little bit, but causing a little bit of dark shadow, but also a space. And you can go along as well, just every now and again, if you like, doing some little black lines underneath the fringe. I think it looks better if you don't do it all as a block, but you know, have a little play, because that could be something that you enjoy doing, and that could be what your style is. This is just my style, you know, and you will have your own. So I'm just going to darken up her cheek again. My pencils keep rolling in, sorry. Just keep going back over it. Just stop every now and again. Take stock of what you've done. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it needs a little bit more colour? And start to trust your judgment, and trust the process of where you're taking it. And what will be at the end. That is your journey. It's where you're at now. And be proud of where you're at now, and then always reflect back to where you've been and see how much you've learned and grown and changed and evolved. So the sun's coming out and I've got a shadow coming over there now. I'm sorry about that. Right, so hopefully I've got rid of that shadow that was starting to come over. I'm sorry about that. I get engrossed when I start colouring and shading, and then I don't realise that the sun's come out or that things have changed and there's a shadow. So I would just go around just darkening up different areas. I'm going to put a little bit of black and some sienna in under her lip here, and just, if you do it that it comes down a little bit like so, then you start to get that feeling of the chin coming out a little bit and the illusion of the lips. Just darken up this a little bit as well. And then use that same pink. This is the light flesh, sorry, the medium flesh. Just to darken that up a little bit there as well. Bring it round that little circle. And then a little tiny little bit of black just at its deepest area. So yeah, and her nose needs a little bit more darkening up. We need to put a little bit more dark down here. And then build that up again. And that bit there needs to be black. So I'm hoping I'm showing you the process that I go through to do skin, and I hope it's helping you. Needs a wee bit more yet. But anyway, I've probably bored you enough. And I'm aware that this has been quite a slow, long process, but hopefully it has helped. So hopefully you can now go ahead and create a full face by going through all of the workshops previous, get your eyes lined up and have a play around with creating your sparkles and your eyelashes and your lips and your noses, and then have a play at doing the skin. And if you find a different way to do it from doing this, then that's great, you know, share it in the group. Go with your gut feeling, go with what's right for you, go with what you're enjoying. You know, it's got to be pleasurable. You can't be putting pressure on yourself, because there's no pleasure in that. You've just got to ease off with the expectations and just go with what you're go with where you're at and enjoy it. So I shall leave you for now. I look forward to our next workshop, and that will be all about hair. Take care.